This video is a recap of the recent 3.5 Genshin Impact Archon Quest, Caribert. I'm your leify Minsleif and I read the Genshin Impact lore so you don't have to. Traveler and Paimon run into Masrur, who delivers them a letter from none other than Kaeya, who is allegedly in Port Ormos on official business to investigate Sumeru's alcohol industry and famed spice cocktails. According to a Port Ormos bulletin board, the trading company had opened a trade route between Port Ormos and Sumeru in dormant port in Mondstadt, which is still an inaccessible but highly talked about area in this current patch. With Mondstadt's main export being alcohol, Kaeya was sent by the Knights of Favonius to negotiate a potential collaboration with the spice merchants. Traveler asked Kaeya about his familiarity with Sumeru, seeing as he traveled here alone, prompting Kaeya to dig up his past. According to his character story 4, we learn that Kaeya and his birth father are from Khaenri'ah, with Kaeya being left in Mondstadt as a child. He was adopted by Dawn Winery's owner Krappus Ragnvindr, where he would become the adoptive brother to an also young Diluc. Krappus Ragnvindr has sent a team of merchants to Sumeru, presumably for business. A young Kaeya read in a book that his homeland of Khaenri'ah was located deep underground near Sumeru. Out of curiosity for his homeland, he stowed himself away on the team's ship to Sumeru. He was promptly returned home as soon as news of his disappearance spread. Kaeya ponders why his birth father left him in Mondstadt in the first place, to fulfill a duty or to escape his troubled heritage and live a peaceful life. According to Kaeya's vision story, he was sent to Mondstadt as an agent for Khaenri'ah to serve their interests. Mona's voice line about Kaeya implies him having to make a major decision regarding his fate in the future. That fate possibly having to do with his surname Albrecht. A letter hidden behind a rock in the Knights of Favonius headquarters revealed that the Albrecht clan from Khaenri'ah stepped up as regents for the ill king of Khaenri'ah. The mention of this name Albrecht draws the attention of Dainsleif, who drops the biggest lore dump in the game so far. Kaeya Albrecht is a descendant of the Abyss Order's founder. It's from Kaeya's following comment about pureblood that were hinted at some critical differences between mixed and pure-blooded Khaenri'ahns, a defining characteristic being their eyes. Khaenri'ahns are recognizable by their primogen-shaped pupils, with Kaeya's being visibly smaller, possibly being an indication of diluted Khaenri'ahn heritage versus a full one. Paimon asks Kaeya if he's involved with the Abyss Order in any way, in which Kaeya, perhaps unsurprisingly, avoids directly answering the question, instead opting that he'll be just as delighted to hunt down the Abyss Order tomorrow as he has always been. You might recall this scene from the Mondstadt Archon Quest, in which Kaeya approaches Abyss Order infiltrators in the city to fraternize and collect intel about their leader. Kaeya's true allegiance up until this point is still undetermined. All we know is that he left this conversation rather abruptly, but not without inviting Dainsleif for a drink. Fun fact, after this point in the story, you can actually talk to Kaeya by teleporting to this waypoint, and he'll be next to the spice merchant Rama. Dainsleif claims to still be investigating the Loom of Fate, an ongoing Abyss Order operation that was first mentioned in version 1.4's We Will Be Reunited Archon Quest. While he was recovering after the events of version 2.6's Archon Quest, he recalled Traveler's sibling mentioning the Loom of Fate during their journey in a video forest centuries ago. Traveler, Paimon, and Dainsleif investigate a small farm field, and Dainsleif remarks that there are no longer signs of life in the area. The house nearby is vacant, where the only objects of interest are a broken mirror inside of a box and medicinal herbs. Dainsleif insists that something happened in this area, but the thought is interrupted by enemies outside. He later leaves to investigate the nearby ley lines alone, hypothesizing that a ley line issue attracted the monsters. While Dainsleif is away, it is a bittersweet moment between Traveler and Paimon, where they talk about Traveler's sibling and if Traveler ever gets tired of having Paimon around. Paimon insists on taking the night shift, and the reminiscent chatter prompts Traveler to dream of their sibling. The next morning, Traveler wakes up with tears in their eyes, with Dainsleif observing that they dreamed of their sibling the night before and imploring them to rest while he investigates the forest nearby. When Traveler fully wakes up, both Paimon and Dainsleif are nowhere to be seen. Hearing a noise coming from inside the house, Traveler comes across an intimidating man who berates them for trying to enter the house. The intimidating man comments that Traveler's companion departed for the forest early that morning. With Paimon and Dainsleif gone and nothing really to do, Traveler decides to follow the intimidating man into the house, only to be met with a wounded hilichurl sleeping on a bed. The intimidating man introduces himself as Eide, and the wounded hilichurl as Caribert. It is here that Traveler realizes that Eide is from Khaenri'ah due to his primogem-shaped eyes. Eide explains that although Khaenri'ahns descended from a single bloodline, the nation accepted any people who did not want to be ruled by gods. When the Cataclysm came, pure-blooded Khaenri'ahns were considered great sinners, which warranted them the curse of immortality, while citizens with mixed or other heritages were turned into hilichurls. Eide now lives with the curse of immortality and was a nobleman of Khaenri'ah who had an illegitimate son with a Khaenri'ahn woman from Mondstadt, that illegitimate son being Caribert. The fate of Caribert's mother is too painful for Eide to recall, and he is in Sumeru in order to concoct a temporary cure for Caribert to recover his clarity of mind. Traveler remembers that according to Dainsleif in the 2.6 Archon Quest, the curse cannot be undone. Eide read about this cure in a book from the Royal Library of Khaenri'ah. The cure comes with some interesting stipulations. Number 1, it needs to be imbued with the power of Sumeru's God of Wisdom, since it has been known to treat cases of mania in the past. Number 2, it needs strange-looking Rukashava mushrooms. And number 3, it needs Sumeru roses and Kalpalata lotuses. Imbuing the cure with the power of Sumeru's god requires Eide to pray to the Statue of the Seven, something he does with incredible difficulty as a Khaenri'ah atheist. Traveler and Eide administer the cure to Caribert, and it seemingly has no effect, to which Traveler suggests producing more doses as one might not be enough. In the process of producing more doses, Traveler and Eide spot what appears to be Caribert leaving towards the chasm. Following the hill trail to the chasm, Traveler and Eide realize that it's not Caribert, as he has no silk scarf around his arm, the scarf being a gift Eide gave to Caribert's mother. Noticing the hill trail's unusual behavior, they follow it into an unknown sanctuary beneath the chasm. The scene is reminiscent of the 2.6 Archon Quest, where Hilichurls retreated into the chasm to alleviate the pain of the curse, and eventually die. However, in this case, the Hilichurls are observed praying to an unseen force. Traveler and Eide encounter what appears to be a cryo-abyss herald, and Eide is awestruck by its power. Deeper into the unknown sanctuary, Traveler and Eide approach a large chained crystal that reminds Traveler of the defiled statue, back in the We Will Be Reunited Archon Quest. Traveler urges Eide to leave, only to find him assuming a prayer stance that looks a little familiar to the artifact prayer pose. An unknown voice inside the head speaks to Traveler and claims to not be a god, but a sinner, who urges them to become a transcendent one, and rise beyond the fate bestowed upon you. Yikes. As soon as the voice disappears, Traveler snaps Eide out of his trance and they return back to the house in Sumeru. The second dose of the cure seems to have worked, and Caribert regains his consciousness only to come to the startling realization that he is no longer human. Eide comforts Caribert and insists that they are living in a fairy tale, and to never remove his Hilichurl mask. Things, however, seem to take a turn for the worse when Eide, a Khaenri'ah atheist, expresses complete and utter devotion to the mysterious voice from the unknown sanctuary, whom he calls a god. Believing that this god saved his son, Eide returns to the unknown sanctuary to pay his respects. Traveler follows. When Traveler and Eide return to the area with the large chained crystal, the crystal and the worshipping Hilichurls are nowhere to be seen. Eide is certain that they will encounter that divine wonder again in the future. They return back to the house only to find Caribert missing and a mirror broken on the floor. Recalling from the beginning of the quest, Traveler questions Eide's reaction as they remember the mirror being broken this entire time. Concluding that Caribert saw his reflection without a mask and ran away, Eide panics and rushes out to find him, but only finding his abandoned scarf. Traveler and Eide run into forest rangers who claim to have seen a lone Hilichurl but left it alone. They later find Caribert, who stands dangerously close to the edge of a cliff. In a moment of agony, Caribert is surrounded with purple energy, presumably abyssal energy. Being unable to accept the cruel revelation, Caribert takes off his mask in utter grief, the force of the immense energy knocking Traveler unconscious. When Traveler wakes up, they are immediately greeted with the most startling revelations they, or we as the audience, have ever experienced. Eide reveals himself to be Clothar Albrecht, the founder of the Abyss Order. He claims that Caribert did not deserve his fate, but now Caribert will be able to weave his own destiny anew, while claiming that salvation for a sinner can only come from a sinner. Born anew, Caribert shall now become the Loom of Fate, the Abyss Order operation Dainsleif had been investigating for 2 Archon quests now. Clothar addresses the Traveler as Princess if the player starts as Aether, or Prince if the player starts as Lumine. And in the mirror, they see none other than the reflection of their sibling staring right back at them before passing out. Traveler truly wakes up to the sound of Dainsleif's voice, and we the audience realize that Traveler was experiencing their sibling's memory due to a dream. Dainsleif suggests that the dream was caused by the Abyss tampering with the ley lines in that area. There are several indications early in the quest to indicate that this was all a dream in the first place. Number 1, Dainsleif insists that there had been no signs of life in the area, but in the dream, Caribert was sleeping inside the house with Eide being close by. Number 2, Paimon was missing, and judging from her reaction to Traveler temporarily leaving her in Act 2 of the Sumeru Archon Quest back in 3.2, it's unlikely that Paimon would leave our side again for now. Number 3, Traveler recalls the mirror having always been broken, but Traveler's sibling had witnessed the mirror when it first broke centuries ago. And finally, number 4, the travelers seeing their siblings' face in the mirror are all indicative that everything we've seen so far was their memory and our dream. Traveler recounts everything they saw to Dainsleif, who says that after founding the Abyss Order, Clothar Albrecht lost his mind completely and disappeared after 100 years. This series of events is allegedly what caused Traveler's sibling to start to split from Dainsleif and join the Abyss Order. Traveler and Dainsleif investigate 2 skeletons buried in the small farmland, a female skeleton and a male skeleton, which was buried much later and holding a scarf in its hand. Remember that Caribert had abandoned the scarf before he succumbed to his fate, and Eide had picked it up. It's also at this point that we realize that the strange Rukashava mushrooms grew from the body of Caribert's mother. Ugh. Traveler assumes that the male skeleton belonged to Clothar Albrecht, to which Dainsleif claims is impossible unless Clothar figured how to break his curse of immortality. Dainsleif suggests they part ways as he might have seen Traveler. The identity of this he is left a mystery, and the quest ends with Traveler hugging Paimon, saying they missed her. The end of this Archon quest has spawned some interesting questions and theories. Number 1, who was that mysterious voice coming from the ominous crystal? What did Dainsleif mean by he saw us? 2.8's Hidden Strife event might have a hint towards his identity. He might refer to King Irmin, presumably the last ruling king of Khaenri'ah in the Eclipse dynasty before the Cataclysm. The Eclipse dynasty was previously mentioned in the breeze amidst the forest, and indirectly referenced by Traveler's sibling in the We Will Be Reunited Archon quest. Given current evidence, it wouldn't be far-fetched to believe this voice belongs to King Irmin himself, especially with his name bearing heavy resemblance to the Irminsul, the tree of information and memories connected to all the ley lines of Teyvat. Number 2, Dainsleif planned for all of this to happen. He played us basically, and I'd allow him to do it again. As the Bowkeeper, I personally wouldn't put it past Dainsleif to be able to manipulate the ley lines in such a way. The title Bowkeeper can read as keeper of the main branch of a tree, with Genshin's most important tree being none other than the Irminsul. 2.8's Hidden Strife event revealed a letter from Albedo to Diluc, which tells of Albedo's theory that the Abyss Order would be able to control the times at which leyline information is recorded and released. Although not affiliated with the Abyss Order, as a previously high-ranking member of the Khaenri'ah military political structure, Dainsleif could possibly harness the ability to force Traveler to experience their sibling's memory via a dream. Remember that Dainsleif had no idea what caused her sibling to suddenly switch sides, but now he does. And number 3, probably the biggest theory out of these 3, is Kaeya Caribert. Here's some evidence I've compiled for this theory. Kaeya's name, translated from Chinese to English, could loosely mean triumphant second. Caribert might have drawn inspiration from the real-life king Caribert I, who was the second eldest son of Clothar I. Triumphant second plus second eldest son? Kaeya also bringing up his birth father in this quest could be a literary foreshadowing to him being Clothar's son and a reborn Caribert. There's also heavy foreshadowing regarding Kaeya having to make a major decision once his fate catches up to him. That fate could literally involve the Loom of Fate, or even his possible identity as a reborn Caribert. However, there are a couple points of evidence against this theory. We actually hear the voice of Kaeya's Khaenri'ah birth father in the Vinelissifest event of version 3.1, and it's different from Clothar's.
This is where you must stay. You are our only hope. Forgive me, Kaeya.
My name is Eide, and you are correct. I was once Khaenri'ah.
Kaeya is also only a descendant of Clothar Albrecht, and there's nothing yet in the game to verify if he's the direct successor. He might share a surname with him, but Clothar Albrecht could have had siblings to carry the surname down the family tree as well. Not to mention, explaining the timeline from which Caribert could reincarnate into a naturally age-progressing Kaeya gets a little messy, since there's a 500-year gap between the two existences. If you enjoyed this recap of Genshin Impact's latest Archon Quest, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. I'm your leify Minsleif, and I read the Genshin Impact lore so you don't have to.